I loved about that whole situation though is that okay? So this is again, I'm gonna say this is the meatball fan in me.
Yep.
And I don't think I mind as much them throwing at him. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Baseball. I actually kind of like the. I don't think, and totally disagree with Cintron saying anything. And I agree with you 100%. A coach is is held to a higher standard, and professionalism needs to be echoed in all facets of the game. But in the same respects, I kind of dig what went on, and the fact that he wasn't backing away, and he's just like, let's go, and he charged a whole dugout. Not even like
that's gutsy.
You're going after like 20 to 26 grown ass men who like that. That's marbles, dude. That's marbles.
Did you see the quote? Laureano was asked, "Do you regret it?" And he goes, "I only regret charging him because he's a loser."
I did see that quote.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, okay. I mean, so before I had side note, before I had internet issues for the first time.
Yes.
I was actually looking up the age of Alex Cintron because I don't think he's very old.
No, I don't think he is.
He's 41. So he probably, I think his last professional game came in. Oh, he was a White Sox player. I forgot about that. That's why his name was so familiar to me.
So when was the last time he played?
Checking out right now. His last game was in 2009 with the Nationals.
Okay. So, I mean, the guy's been out of the game for 11 years, and he's the hitting coach for the Astros. Like, you can't be doing that. And then just taking it on, like, a personal level. Like, it just amazes me the fact that he incited Laureano to come after him and then just hit. Like, You're the one who wanted it. He's literally motioning, like, come here. Laureano's like, okay. Then the guy hides behind his other coaches.
So, from a coaching perspective, there has been times where, and for those that don't know, I've coached multiple sports.
Yeah.
But in those times, and keep in mind that these are not grown ass men.
Right.
These are children essentially, high school young men. And we'll have kids that, no joke, more so recently, that actually look at benches and visibly say something at a bench. Now, mind you, I don't think that it's right for a grown man to do it. So to see a 17, 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old kid do it, it's like, come on. So let's relax. Let's relax here. So, no, I agree with you. So coaches are definitely held to a higher standard, and they should. But I don't know. I kind of wanted to see his 41-year-old ass get whooped.
Honestly, though, I mean, it was interesting because then Austin Allen, I will say that the A's backup catcher, Austin Allen, just rushed in and started throwing hands. I'm like, okay, you don't need to do that. Go in, break up the situation. He got a little happy in there. But Cintron got suspended for 20 games, which, first of all, that's the longest suspension for a coach in a really long time. And second of all, that's a third of the season right now.
So you got to think, too, though, that something like that is an example suspension. And we talked about that with
Joe Kelly.
I'm sorry?
Joe Kelly.
Joe Kelly, thank you.
Yep.
We talked about that with Joe Kelly. So I think this is another situation where Rob Manfred said, listen, do not argue, get into fights, get close proximity to one another if you do not have to. Obviously, batting and whatnot, that's a different story. But in a situation like this, he would have been suspended regardless in a regular regular time, I guess you could say, for lack of a better way of putting it. But compound that with a pandemic going on, don't be an idiot. So guess what? Yeah. You are going to be made an example of because, A, like you said, MJ, higher standard, you're a coach.
Yep.
during the time frame that we're in, B, and C. Stop being a dumbass.
Yeah, I don't know. I could rant for days on that because it pissed me off. But yeah, I mean, so real quick before Eric gets in here, he said he's rushing home from work, so hopefully he'll be able to hop on here on time. NBA bubble action. We've got most of the playoffs. Damian Lillard has been going crazy. Devin Booker has been going crazy. What have you enjoyed from the bubble, Bruce?
The Suns.
The Suns?
The Phoenix Suns.
8-0.
Phoenix Suns. 8-0. Devin Booker's been going off. I loved seeing the stuff with Paul George and Damian Lillard go at it. I wasn't a fan of the families going after each other on Sunday after that game, but I absolutely loved seeing the fact that Paul George said, you're going to go home to Cancun, or go on vacation to Cancun, whatever. Yep. And then Pat Bev, who's a Chicago guy, likes to talk that shit.
He does.
But Pat Bev chimes in saying something like to basically back up his boy Paul George. And Damian Lillard comes back with, can't do it on your own, you got to join a team. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's great for NBA. Yep. I think players are getting ornery as all hell because they're stuck in an area in one condensed spot and they can't venture out. They can't go out to go to the clubs and do the thing like Lou Williams did. It was Lou Williams.
Yep.
But
he went to get his wings.
Dude, but honestly, I love it. I've been loving it. The brand of basketball we've been seeing has been a lot better than, and we talked about this before, it's been a lot better than what we expected. It's a lot better. These play-in type games have been great. And while, yes, they are warm teams, hence the reason why getting those minute restrictions, I think it's been great. I think it's been fun and super entertaining. I've watched games every single day, and having all sports in action, it's just been awesome.
So the thing I love is that once the playoffs start, guys are going to be allowed to bring in one close relative, family member, friend. Bruce, did you see Stephen A. Smith's segment this morning? Please tell me you did.
Unfortunately, I have not seen it.
Okay, so after the show, you need to go look it up because Stephen A. Smith was basically saying that this is the NBA realizing that if they don't let in, for the most part, a female friend for most of the players, that they're going to have a couple more slip-ups like Lou Williams, and that will be bad for the playoffs. So Stephen A. was kind of hypothesizing that it'll pretty much be a female visitor for most people. For obvious reasons, and Max Kellerman's reaction sitting there while Stephen A. tried to dance around it was one of the funniest things I have ever seen in my life. Because he knows exactly what...
Essentially, you're saying the bubble will be... go ahead. Sorry.
No, go for it.
I was going to say... I was essentially saying the bubble will be bursted because the guys are horny.
Yeah. Basically, so I mean, but the great thing is the people who are so basically, let's say your wife wants to come into the bubble, she's pretty much now in the bubble too. So I don't think they can leave either.
That's interesting
because otherwise that would defeat the entire purpose of the bubble.
I mean, if so, is it like jail, where you get a conjugal visit where someone comes in for a little bit and then has to leave?
That's what Stephen A. was kind of implying.
That's interesting.
But if it was that, then that kind of eliminates the idea of a bubble, right? Why it would make more sense for them to bring in a family member that will stay with them the entire time and be treated the same in the bubble as one of the players, because otherwise you're breaking the bubble and there's no reason to have a bubble anymore.
So unless and I'm sure they've thought of this. Smarter people have, I'm sure, talked about this than myself. But unless they ended up putting in I'm trying to look up the new guidelines for the NBA players and whatnot. Unless they ended up implementing something where they start testing the closest family member or whomever of next like that they want to come to the bubble. So in order for them to do that, they would have to test them multiple times like they did for the players.
So the best thing was, it says in the guidelines, I saw this on Twitter earlier, that there has to be like a previously established and documented relationship between these two people.
So that's very subjective.
Right. But it like basically they have to at least have met before. So if you catch what I'm throwing out, Bruce. So they have to have met before.
So what happens, okay, so NBA players, professional athletes in general, have a multitude of cities that they go to.
Yep.
Typically.
Yep.
Some of these gentlemen are single.
Yep, that is correct.
I'm going to go on the side of talking about my example of being single gentlemen.
Yes.
So that said, say you have John. John's like, you know what? I know Jill here in Orlando. I've hung out with Jill before. She's on my phone. You know, we went to a couple places, had a couple drinks, stuff like that, and you know, I want Jill to come by. Why can't John have Jill come by if she tests okay?
That's I get it. I
get the idea of the bubble, and I get the idea of a situation where we need to be as cautious as possible if we want to continue this very, very fine line that we are walking with sport. However, I think that you're going to end up finding a position of people going out on their own and trying to cheat the system.
Yep.
And in doing so, you're not able to have a granulated approach to, or I'm sorry, a vetted approach to making sure that these people and your bubble that you have created, it has been awesome because you've had 0 positive tests, is going to end up imploding because you decide that, nope, you know what? You can't go see your wife, or you can't go see Jill.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get where the players are coming from, however, but I also get it from the perspective of an NBA official.
For sure. It'll be interesting. Well, we do have Eric coming in, so I'm going to let Eric hop in.
Sweet. Eric, what's good, man?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on, Eric? How you doing?
What's happening?
Not much. We were just discussing the. I know you're a baseball guy, but we were discussing the interesting news of the NBA today. The visitors that may be allowed, depending on certain circumstances.
And how the NBA bubble will be ruined by horniness.
Basically.
They've been pitching a perfect game so far, so I don't know. I think Silver's got that stuff handled pretty good. I have faith in them that they'll be okay.
Let's just say this. I trust Adam Silver to do that effectively much more than Rob Manfred trying to figure out a MLB playoff bubble.
Yeah, without question. At this point, I give Silver the benefit of the doubt, and I give Manfred absolutely no confidence whatsoever in doing anything.
Agreed.
So, Eric, before we get going, if you just want to introduce yourself a little bit to everybody, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I feel like I'm on like a job interview.
Yes, give me your biggest strength, biggest weekness, and a time that you had to overcome difficulty.
Oh, wow, you're going out there, huh?
No, I work at Barstool Sports. I'm a Yankees guy there. I write about baseball too. Write about a lot of random stuff as well. I have a podcast, The Short Porch. I have a video morning show now, baseball show called Morning Wood, which will recap baseball in the morning after last night's events. And yeah, we do a bunch of video stuff, interacting. I'm on Twitter. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just everything Yankees and baseball for me.
So what have you thought of the Yankees so far? Aaron Judge went on a tear to start the season. Now he's been out the last couple of games. Clint Frazier's been able to replace him. So give me a couple initial thoughts on how the Yanks have been doing so far.
Yeah, I think if you told me that they'd have the rotation issues that they've had with the injuries that they've had with the bullpen, with Canley obviously be gone and Chapman being absent because of Corona and working his way back up. And you can tell me Glaber's hitting 110, I forget what it is, and then Gary's hitting 110 too. I'd probably tell you we'd be lucky to be 9-9 through 18 games, and the Yankees are 12-6. So all things considered, now obviously Yankee fans like myself, and we're going to complain as much as we can because we strive for perfection with this organization. But 12-6 through 18, giving all I just said, is pretty damn good. And they're only going to get better. Starting rotation will fill itself out, especially when Clark Schmidt gets up here, hopefully soon. I never had any wavering. I never had any doubt in Montgomery. Some people did, but I think he's a mainstay in the rotation for years to come. Cole is as good as advertised, if not better. Hopefully Paxton can build off his start on Sunday, and then Tanaka's Tanaka. So as bad as the rotation is being described by maybe non-Yankee fans, I think it's going to be okay. And the hitting will always be there. Obviously, Giancarlo being down is bad, but they have the depth to replace him for now, especially with Klimt being up here. I'm very excited about that. And Talkman, they got a bunch of guys. Mike Ford even can get you at bats, of course. So 12-6 through 18, given what's happened, I'm very happy.
Nice. Well, I got to tell you right now, first of all, thank you so much for giving us Chapman for a rental for 2016. I greatly appreciate that. I have to get that off my chest to you first. You touched on it a little bit with Chapman with COVID. To your knowledge, how's he doing? Is he recovering well? And how's everything going with him?
Yeah, well, also thanks for Glaber, because we weren't going to win with that team. We weren't going to win. Yeah, I think it's as rare of a win-win trade as it gets.
Yeah.
Because, you broke your curse pretty much. He was a big part of that. Obviously not in Game 7, but he was a big part in getting you to Game 7. Like, he shored up everything with that bullpen because that bullpen was in trouble without him. I don't even know who your closer was before him. I'm trying to think. I don't even know, but you would know. Who was it?
Who was the Cubs closer?
That's a good question. I think this kind of speaks to how bad their bullpen was before that.
I'm picturing him. I just can't think of his name. But whatever. But you're welcome. Good win-win trade because Glaber's phenomenal.
Was Rondon?
Yeah, Rendon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, he was wild as all hell, and I used to get freaked out every time he would come in.
The only guy more wild than him was Marmol, who was like the most wild.
Carlos Marmol.
Yikes.
He would lose me like. I would like bet in college on the Cubs, like day game Friday day games in college, and I'd be up like 4 runs in the 9th inning, and it's the bases loaded and 3 runs already in with that guy, and there's nobody out. Like he would when he was off. Now, granted, like he had stuff to be really good, but when he was off, he was like the worst pitcher of all time. That's
so. Let me tell you too. Just to make hopefully maybe this will make you feel better because I was putting bets on Aaron Judge hitting home runs after he was going off like crazy every game at the start. So I would put money down for Aaron Judge hitting a home run, and all of a sudden out of nowhere he didn't, and then he got hurt or was hurt. So.
Okay, so stop doing that effective immediately.
It's all your fault, Bruce. It won me
some good money though. It won me some good money for 3 days straight, so I was okay with it.
I forgot even what the original question was here.
It was just how's Chapman doing?
We're a little confused on the Short Porch, the Yankees podcast I do, because he's been cleared of COVID for like a good, I want to say 10 to 14 days, and they've been building they like keep saying like we just want to make sure he's ready, and he said like I am ready. I'm throwing 100 miles an hour. Like I'm good to go.
There you go.
But they refuse to call him up. They still want to keep building him up. I think he's got a bullpen tonight and tomorrow, or one or the other. So that will after that they'll probably reevaluate. I would expect him to be with the Yankees in the next 5 days. If he's not, then like something weird is going on here because he worked out like a monster when he even had COVID because he was asymptomatic. He was doing his thing. He's a workout machine, and all offseason he was working out. So his strength is there. It's not going away. I'm sure he'll probably come in and throw 96, 97 to start, but he always does that, and he builds his way up throughout the season. But they need him back because when you put Chapman back at the closer role, takes the pressure off of Britton, lets him pitch the 8th, and lets Chad Green and Ottavino kind of alternate the 7th inning or whatever. And if you need them to go longer, you can go 6th and 7th with those guys respectively. Right. Where without Canley, without Chapman, it's tough. It's putting too much pressure. Green is pitching like almost every day. Britton, you can't even like steal games with like very recently they've had like 5-run leads, and they're trying to steal outs with guys like Jonathan Holder and Sessa and like these young guys like Albert Abreu or whatever, and it just by chance these guys aren't pitching well, and like they have to bring in the big guys to like get the win. That sucks. Like the fact that you can't even steal these outs. So it would help if those guys could get bigger outs here and there, but they're not. So they need Chapman back. It will reset everything. The bullpen will become a lot better, a lot deeper, and a lot stronger.
Eric, do you think that the 3-batter minimum or the rule that you have to at least end the inning, has that affected the Yankees at all, especially obviously due to Chapman and other guys being out?
I think the one guy, I haven't noticed it really. Like, I truly, like, I don't think it's become an issue for anyone on this team. Granted, they didn't really have a specialist, per se, before this. Like, a lot of other guys just are coming in to pitch to 3 batters usually. The only guy would be Ottavino, who they love to use in small bursts, at least to start. So that's a little different for him. And you can kind of tell immediately if he doesn't have his stuff. Right. And they just pull him like they did in the postseason, where like he'd pitch the one batter, it'd be like Nelson Cruz, and they'd be like, okay, get out of here, let's get somebody else. You can tell, but I mean, granted, a lot of the time he's on and he's absolutely disgusting. But he would be the only guy. I think everyone else, they're pretty comfortable. It's like, they'll get 3 batters here, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I really haven't noticed it a lot. I mean, that's a good point. I think the amount of pitching changes are about the same. I think they're just coming at a different time. And I know MLB has been harping on pace of play and things like that. I've always been of the idea that it really doesn't matter. The people who are going to watch baseball are going to watch it, and 2 or 3 minutes isn't going to make that much of a difference. But I do think the flow is a little bit better with this because the pitching changes are mostly happening in between innings for the most part. And so I think it does flow a lot better.
Yeah, I would agree. And I actually haven't even seen too much manipulation of the rule. I originally thought you were going to see guys try and steal a batter, like if you knew a guy was coming out, and you didn't want the next guy to face all 3, have the first guy throw 3 like balls or whatever, like blatant balls, and have the 4th guy come in and throw the 4th ball, so that technically is a batter for him. I haven't seen that, but I thought I was going to see more of that. That would be
interesting.
Yeah, I think it's just another way to get past the rule. But no, I haven't seen it. I really haven't noticed the rule too much.
So, all right. So since we're going rules now, I'm not a fan of this. I'm very old-fashioned with my baseball.
Oh no.
I'm sorry, dude. I whatever. Okay, if you're thinking DH, we're.
No, I know what you're talking about.
I'll hang up if you say that the DH shouldn't be universal.
Although, have you seen what the NL is hitting right now with their DH?
It's a lot better than what a pitcher would be doing.
Their average is shit. It's in the hundreds, though, still.
Still?
It's still in the hundreds.
Well, they got to get better hitters. That's not my problem.
It's because it was sprung on him.
Hey, as a Cubs fan, I'm cool with it because we have people that can fill that spot. So I'm cool with
it. I mean, it doesn't help. Like, the one team that really needed in the NL was the Mets with Cespedes, and then he just decided to quit.
He's like,
quit baseball.
Yeah.
He's gone.
But no, actually, what I was going to ask you, though, is what are your thoughts on extra innings starting at second base like a Little League team?
I get the rule. I like totally understand it because when you play 66 games in 60 days, I mean, granted, it's different for, like, the Cardinals are going to be playing 50 games in 20 days or something like that. Right. But when you play those games in that short amount of time, you can't afford to have these games go 15 innings.
Yeah.
Now, I wish almost they played the 10th inning normal, and they went to the rule in the 11th inning.
I was actually thinking 12th like that.
Yeah, 12th almost is maybe a little too late, but at least give me 1 normal inning. But I do understand what they're doing. I just hope, and I do fear it, that this will be a thing when we move on from this and life becomes a little bit normal again. But as the rule itself, now I watch a lot of baseball that just isn't the Yankees. I'll watch, I'll flip on MLB TV as I go to bed and watch it until I pass out. Right. When I watch it as a non-Yankee fan, it's fun because
you're stressed though. When it's your team, when it's the Yankees, you're sitting there like, shit, dude, this guy's on second base.
Right. As I get into my point is that the moment the Yankees get involved with that, I'm gonna lose my mind. I won't know what to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, granted, if DJ LeMahieu leads off the inning and there's a man on second, the Yankees have a run scored in the inning. So he's built for this type of thing. Right. But I worry about the relievers and all that, and I think the strategy with it is interesting. With a guy like Chapman, if it's a tie game in the 9th, and let's say you've used most of your guys, and Chapman's there. Do you use Chapman in the 9th, or do you wait for the 10th because he's such a swing and miss guy that you want him to maybe limit contact?
True.
But then you're risking losing the game in the 9th without your best pitcher. So I think that's just an interesting thing that you could see move forward with strategy. But obviously the Yankees haven't been involved yet.
What I can't stand, though, I'm sorry, MJ.
No, go for it.
I'm going to interject one more time again. With it is, and again, this is me being old-fashioned. I don't give a shit. I'm going to say it. I don't like the fact that a pitcher will get a loss, though, if that run scores.
That's tough. But who do you give the loss to?
Exactly, and I understand that.
Yeah.
I get that thought process too, but it just sucks though that you can get somebody coming in from the pen and has absolutely just fresh, no bearing on the game whatsoever, and then he gives up a single and the game's over and he gets lost.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give the loss to someone, and you can't give it to the pitching coach. You can't give it to the manager. like someone's got to get it. It can't be the guy before him if he didn't give him any runs. That's unfair.
Right.
So, maybe you give it to the last guy who gave up an earned run. I don't know.
Maybe.
That'd be interesting.
At least it doesn't. They don't charge the runs to the ERA. I know that. At least
Yeah.
the runner on
No, you're right. You're right with that.
I think
so that would be crazy. But I do hear you there. Then again, wins and losses, especially for a reliever,
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't really tell the whole story.
Right.
I think wins as a starter is is different. But yeah, the rule is fine. Especially, I guess I'm a little more biased in that sense. Is my bets that have gone to extra innings, I think I'm 4-1 in them. So I kind of love it.
So do you post that on Twitter?
Post what?
Your bets.
No.
I was gonna say you might want to help brother out with that.
Oh no! The moment I'll start telling people
that's true. That's fair.
The moment you get a little cocky with gambling, the gambling gods get you that.
Yep.
That's true.
You're not wrong.
The one thing that does drive me crazy is the idea that a pitcher could throw a perfect game, and that team could still lose.
There's weird loopholes for sure.
There's weird things like that. But my question to you, Eric, is: do you bunt or do you not bunt?
I think it depends on the hitter. I was watching. What was it? I think Oakland was in Oakland was in the first one ever, the game where Olsen hit the grand slam.
Yep.
And I think it was an ESPN game, and Jessica Mendoza was doing the game because they just have to stick her on something. And I remember Ramon Laureano led off the inning. And Ramon Laureano is a 2-hitter on the A's.
Right.
And he's a very good hitter, and she was screaming for him to bunt. He's the number 2 hitter on the team.
He's the best hitter on our team right now.
Right. Chappie is obviously great, but this year, I mean, at the time, this is the first game of the year, so I guess he wasn't on the roll. So at the time, Chapman is your guy.
Yeah.
But no, in that sense, why would you ever take the bat out of the hands?
Out of the hands of your best hitter.
Right, and I think especially if you are the away team, I don't think you should ever bunt.
Yeah.
I think you should be swinging away because you're trying to score as many runs as possible. If you just get away with 1 run at the top inning, you can't feel good because all the home team needs to do is just get 1 good swing, tie game. It's if you come out of there with just 1 run, never mind 0. If you come out with 0, that is so demoralizing. It's how are we winning this game? There was that Astros-A's game though when I was watching. It went to late at night.
13
innings. No one scored for 2.5 innings.
Yeah.
With the bases were loaded every inning. It was crazy, but it is exciting. It is exciting. I'm not pushing for it. I'm not pushing for it, but it is exciting.
I had a heart attack 7 times during that game because the A's had the bases loaded. I want to say it was 4 out of the last 5 innings, and we didn't score a run until the 13th. And I thought I was going to kill someone because we had so many opportunities. We were 2 for 18 with runners in scoring position, and it was just demoralizing. The Astros score a run in the top of the 13th. I'm like, great, we haven't been able to score a run forever. And then we get 2 runs because we start with a guy on second base. So
what's his name? Got a huge hit in that game. Who was it? The guy who tied that game.
Austin Allen.
Yeah. Out of nowhere.
Well, because
Austin Allen's the hero. It was 2 strikes, 2 outs.
Because they walked Robbie Grossman because he was the only A's guy that had done anything in that game.
He had a homer in that game.
They intentionally walked Robbie Grossman to get to Austin Allen, the rookie. He's like, screw you, punches a single beautiful hit to left center, and then Marcus Semien with the walk-off. So, I mean, that was really impressive to me. I mean, I know the kid's a good hitter, but that was just also, that's a gutsy situation because they were just flat out saying, I would rather you hit than anybody else on this team right now.
And that's that's the most dangerous thing you can do to a hitter is walk someone in front of them, give them all the motivation. You know that you're asking to lose. Like, yes. I mean, it could be the right decision. Like, if Aaron Judge is in front of anybody else, you make no brainer. But it does add motivation to that guy. And hey, good for him. Yeah, Oakland. I think I did have Oakland that game, so that was fantastic. I enjoyed that game.
So how much does your betting go into your work, Eric? Or is that just purely personal?
No. I mean, we're Penn National bought Barstool. Like, we're becoming a very big into it, and I pay attention to it. It's not like
you guys have helped me.
What'd you say?
You guys have helped me. Cheers.
There you go. I mean, the sports betting is becoming big as it gets legalized more and more, and we're excited. It's gonna be dope.
So, actually, my question is going to be more generic right now, just so you know. Who has been the team to surprise you the most this year? And I know you're very Yankees-oriented. And
I watch a lot. Yeah.
AL East-oriented, but what team have you noticed that's like, damn, I wasn't seeing that?
I mean, I just broke down the Oakland A's, home opener.
You did. You're going crazy with the A's.
Yeah. Also, the A's, I mean, they're not surprising them because that is a good team, but they're playing very, very well.
Oh, yeah.
But the most surprising, I think it's the Rockies. It has to be the Rockies.
Yes, I love it.
It has to be the Rockies, but it's not even you always know they can hit. They always can hit. But they've got
Charlie Blackmon's been going off.
Yeah. But the rotation of Freeland, who seems to have snapped back to reality after last year where he had a very down year. Year before that, he's fantastic. Freeland, Marquez, and Senzatella are three really good starting pitchers right now. It's a good three. I don't remember the last time they've had that many good starting pitchers, or at least guys that can even name in their starting rotation.
Seriously.
So, now I don't know anything about their bullpen really. I haven't watched them too closely. And they did get rocked yesterday. But that will happen. But that rotation's good, and the offense they'll always be able to hit no matter who you throw up there. They seem to just breed hitters. So the Rockies for sure have impressed me. Other than that, I mean, the Padres are putting it together finally, which is nice to see. Dodgers tonight, so that'll be fun. Tatis has really taken that next step to becoming just an absolute superstar, must-watch guy. So they're a lot of fun. That NL West has become the best division in baseball so far this year.
Well, I definitely think it. Go ahead, Bruce.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it helps the NL West that they're playing the AL West because outside of Houston and the A's, there's really not much there. I mean, the Angels, the Mariners, and the Rangers are all pretty bad. They're all below 500 right now, and even including the Astros. So I think the fact that you're playing it's AL West and NL West, and that's it. I think the NL West is benefiting a little bit from that, not to take away from what the Rockies and the Padres have been doing, but I definitely think they benefit from having a higher percentage of games against some lower quality opponents.
No, that's totally fair. The Angels have been a big I'm not the Angels. The Angels. I never consider the Angels anything. They'll never do anything. But the Rangers to me have been a disappointment. That was kind of my underdog sleeper to do something. And I mean, Kluber going down early doesn't help your chances. But they just haven't impressed. I thought they were going to slug their way to some games, and they haven't really clicked yet. So yeah, there's definitely something to that for sure.
Well, the Rangers also, I thought going into the year, they had one of the best rotations. Not necessarily one of the best, top-heavy rotations. They're not going to compare to the Nationals or anyone like that. But in terms of just a deep, solid rotation, you're right. Losing Kluber hurts. But I think the other four guys in that original starting five have also underperformed. That offense is a little bit volatile sometimes. Joey Gallo either hits 3 home runs or has 7 strikeouts in a game. So with a volatile offense, they need a little bit more consistency on the pitching side.
Yeah, Lance Lynn continues to be I think he's got a 1-something ERA. Yeah. But besides that, they haven't had a ton of help, and Kluber being down certainly does not help their cause.
Yeah. So Eric, what the hell does the Major League Baseball do with the win percentage this year for a team to qualify for the playoffs?
Yeah, when they did the strike in '94, they did the same thing where they took winning percentage because not everyone could get there. But the Cardinals are in a different story here. Now, I did just read a little while ago that they're confident they could still get 60 games in. I don't know how.
7 inning doubleheaders.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they do it. They should just kick them off the tour. Like, I don't know. But not my problem. Don't go out like you did and don't be reckless. Now I don't have any sympathy for that. Play on.
I agree, and I don't get how you have other players that are in your minor league stadiums around the area training, ready for call up, and they haven't taken advantage of that.
That was my question. Like, why haven't they have taxi squads and the alternative site for a reason? Why aren't they using them?
Exactly.
Isn't that the whole idea? I mean, I know it's different if coaching staffs are exposed and there's positive tests on a coaching staff, but even then, I mean, isn't that the reason we have these alternative sites so that play can keep going?
Because you have Joe Blow going, and they don't want Joe Blow playing.
Right, like, we're not talking about filling one guy in here. We're talking about, like, you basically have to put the entire minor league team as the major league team, because you're not sure what major leaguer is, like, not infected or not. So it's tough. I don't know. They're in a really bad spot. You really just shouldn't have been selfish and done what they did. It's no coincidence that the Yankees and, like, teams like the Cubs, who I don't believe the Cubs have had one positive test since they started testing.
The entire time.
If the players just follow the rules, don't be selfish, and just play baseball. And now, sure, asking a lot to stay in a hotel on the road all the time, I get it. But you know what, man? You're doing it for 2 months, and you're getting paid, and this is how the season's going to go. Why would you ruin it for somebody else? Like, just don't be that guy. I wrote a blog probably like a couple weeks ago, and I said, just don't be that guy. Like, it's not that hard. It's no coincidence that the teams that have, the Indians are going out to bars. The Marlins went to strip clubs. It's no coincidence here. Those are the teams that are in trouble, and the other teams that are following the rules, they're fine. Yeah. So they can get through this season. Like, they just need to be smart.
And we've seen with the Indians, Plesac and Clevenger went out, and their teammates are pissed. And
they called them out in the media.
Yeah, and they have a right to be, because those are two of their best pitchers, and by going out because they just couldn't stay occupied in a hotel, they're screwing over the Indians, because they were on track to do really well, and losing two of their best pitchers, that screws them over.
And a guy like Carlos Carrasco had leukemia last year. He has a compromised immune system. Like, that's the last guy that needs to be on that type of team where, like, Corona is a threat. You don't that, and Terry Francona too. I don't know what his status is the last few days, but I know he had been away from the team to deal with it. He's back, okay, but he was dealing with a gastrointestinal problem. Like, you don't need those guys at risk. So it's just like, what are you doing? I love Clevenger. Like, he's the man, and he's such an outspoken guy. Such a weird move by him, especially like his quotes when Plesac originally got in trouble, and he was
that pisses me off
he's
the
like,
most.
"We'll handle this in house," and like, we can't be doing this. Like, dude, you were there.
Right.
It's crazy to me. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so Eric, last question I think I have for you before we got to run is, 16-team playoff. How much do you think having some extra teams in there, whatever the playoffs end up looking like, because I know they're still trying to figure that out, but with 16 teams, do you think the World Series champion, not necessarily will it be legitimate, but are we going to have a weird World Series champion?
Well, I think they're going to have to do a bubble. I mean, you just have to, because what happens if the Yankees have an outbreak? A team like the Yankees, for example, had an outbreak in the playoffs. What do? Just say bye? Like, you can't afford that. So they're going to need to do this bubble, and maybe they're thinking about it too late. But hopefully not. Hopefully they can figure it out, whether it's in Arizona or LA or whatever. But I think they're going to need to do this bubble just to be perfectly safe. And you quarantine teams before, but I think absolutely this is a legitimate champion, because the road just to get here is like harder than ever. And it's like, I know there was someone in the NBA, I think it was Austin Rivers, who said the same thing with the NBA. Like, this is so impressive if you win the whole thing, and you're still in the playoffs, going to have to win 7-game series against these teams.
Normal playoff.
It's not like if it was like 3-game series in the playoffs the whole way, or like 1-game series, that's different. That's a little bit of circus. But the first rounds, these 3 games, which could be weird, obviously, like baseball, anything can happen. And I don't like how, if they did the bubble, the like number one, the Yankees, like if they're the 1 seed, wouldn't really have any advantage. Like originally it was like, okay, you host all 3 games, that's a big advantage to the Yankees. They haven't lost in Yankee Stadium this year, but now if you're playing in LA, that advantage is out the window. So I don't like that, but maybe they have to adjust. But to win those 7-game series, still, if they beat it's not gonna be the Astros, but if it's the Rays for 7 games or the A's, and then you're playing the Dodgers, like how are you gonna tell me that's not a legitimate World Series champion? Now, if the Yankees don't win the World Series, then it'll be this fake season. But until then, it's real.
It'll be the Cubs.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, and I'll say it'll be the A's.
All right,
perfect.
They'll all be there. I'll tell you that. Those are 3 really good baseball teams.
Yep. Well, Eric, thank you very much for taking time out of your evening, hustling home from work to come talk to us. This has been a lot of fun. So thank you very much, man.
Yeah, you thanks, guys. Please join us again sometime, brother.
Absolutely, no problem.
Talk to you later.
Later.
Sweet. And then now we are going to transition immediately to Michael Rothstein. So, Bruce, switch your brain over from baseball to football.
Okay,
and let's roll.
Do it. I'm okay with it.
Get
I'm
Michael
totally
in here.
Okay with it. Switching over to football talk. I like it.
I love how passionate Eric is, too.
I know.
Let's see. Michael, let us know when you can hear us.
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there.
Doing fantastic. Let's see.
Best we can do right now during the situation that we're in, right?
I mean, it's been, 6 months at this point?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be covering a preseason game right now, man.
I guess I am. I mean, that tells you where I'm at, right? Like, I saw someone tweet, I think it was Rich Cimini, my colleague who covers the Jets, tweeted that he should be at MetLife right now covering Jets-Giants. And, like, I was like, hey, yeah, I guess I would have been. I mean, I would have been watching it more than likely on television because I think their first preseason game was at New England.
Yep.
So I generally don't travel in the preseason. So, yeah, I would imagine I was watching that on television. And I think it was Thursday night. Maybe it might have been Saturday. I don't remember. I mean, that feels like 150 years ago. Like I used a baseline right now that's like 450 years ago, right?
Yeah.
It was like pre-COVID. And so like that would be like 150 years ago. By the way, is the lighting all right? Here, let me.
It's up to you, man. We're just living in it.
There we go. That's even awful. Hold on.
We generally have low production quality. I'm sitting in my dorm room.
Production quality we got going on here anyway, so it works out.
Fair enough. I will quickly move over to a lighter place. And it's interesting because the setup I have. Here, I'll move over here.
It's okay. I'm okay with seeing a world.
Yeah.
I mean,
No. The problem is if someone zoomed in behind it, they would see that some countries are like blacked out, and that's not like anything purposeful. Literally, this was a stupid idea. Countries I was going to just color in.
Yeah.
That way, but I colored them in, first of all, with black marker, not smart. Second of all, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Now I've been to Spain, Portugal, Germany, Austria. Like, I've been all these places. You can't even, like, tell the difference. So I started outlining them, and then I pick it up, and the map's just lazily still up there. But you can see, like, Portugal and Netherlands and whatever all colored in, and it's,
That's good stuff, man. Good stuff. Well, first of all, welcome to MJ's and my little show here, Third Down Thursday. Please, if you could tell our viewing audience a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so basically, I cover ESPN. Wow. It's been that type of day. I cover the Detroit Lions for ESPN. I also cover some MMA, some boxing, do some investigative pieces. Grew up in New York, bounced all around the country after that for, I don't know. It's probably 10, 11, 12 years. No, yeah, about 10, I guess. I was covering Notre Dame for a bit. Then I moved up to Michigan to cover Michigan for the local paper, and then got hired by ESPN a couple years after that. And this is season 10 working for ESPN, 8 of them covering the NFL now, provided obviously the NFL gets off the ground, and 2 before that covering Michigan and some national college basketball.
Awesome.
So how has quarantine been for you? I mean, I know the NFL. It's an obvious question, but
I've been drinking more alcohol.
No, I actually don't drink.
I mean, Bruce has. We all know that.
Yeah, I actually don't drink.
Good for you.
But yeah, I have. As you do, that's fine. I'm all about it.
It's tea.
No,
it's tea.
It's been interesting. So I live alone. And I have no family around here. Like my dad's in New York, my brother's in North Carolina. So like the first month and a half, the only human beings I had contact with, like in person, were the people at the grocery stores, who are wonderful people and I actually have gone to the same grocery stores for a number of years. So I know some of them at this point.
Yeah.
So like that would be my interaction. And if I like saw somebody at the grocery store that worked there that I knew, it was super exciting. You'd have a 5-minute conversation. It was great. Like that was it until probably May. But it's been good. In some ways, it's been busier than I would have normally been, really, up until this time, just because some projects I'm working on. One ran yesterday about Barry Sanders. I have 2 or 3 others that are in the works that are hopefully going to run here in the next, I don't know, month and a half, on top of everything else I've been working on. And then I've had some other things that have fallen through, et cetera. But I've actually been busier than you would normally think for a sports writer without sports in an off-season in the pandemic, because the NFL and MMA and boxing just kept going along, right?
Yeah.
Free agency, the draft. UFC was paused for like 10 seconds compared to every other sport. Boxing came back in June and has been going since. So it's been more normal for me from a work perspective than I would have anticipated, except not being out at training camp every day yet. But that's changing Monday, as I went for my first COVID test yesterday and came back negative. So that's a good thing. And the next one is Saturday.
So I'm going to lead us down a different path now.
Sure.
I obviously, as you can see behind my shoulder, I'm a huge Chicago Bears fan.
I could not have guessed that.
And I'm a Packers fan.
I noticed that too. You know, I know you got the little Green Bay flag and behind you too.
Oh yeah, I do, right there. Yep.
We have a very interesting dynamic. So as soon as the NFL football season starts, if it starts,
we might kill each other, but it's okay.
It'll be a very interesting conversation. However, I digress. Anyway. What I wanted to ask you, though, was so I know the Chicago Bears have implemented a very, very stringent testing protocol for COVID-19. So just out of curiosity, and you don't need to go into fine details about it, what are the guidelines for Detroit Lions players and staff for them to get into their practice facility?
I mean, it's basically the same everywhere, more or less. They have to be they're tested every day. The NFL and NFLPA came to an agreement, 2 days ago? That test, I think it was 2 days ago, that testing will happen every day until September 5th. And you basically go into at the Lions play, you go into a trailer that's kind of on the side of the building, the team's facility, and you walk in one at a time, you go in, you check in, you give them your driver's license information. They take you back to a stall, for lack of a better term, and you have to wear your mask, and you pull your mask down. You can't pull it down the whole way. I did that, and so no, put it back up. So I had my nose out, but my mouth was covered. And they nose swab you in each nostril, and you go on your way. Really, it's probably 90 seconds total from like walk in the door to walk out the door once you kind of get signed in for the first time, and then you just go about your day, whether that's going to practice, whether that's going into meetings. And then tests take about 24 hours. I think I got my results back 20 hours later today from when I took it. And if you're negative, it just tells you that. If you're positive, I don't know what happens if you're positive because I haven't been that. My guess is they would probably call you, but I don't know that for sure. I think it might depend on the situation. I think Matthew Stafford said he got a phone call. So, and that's what happens. And then you basically just go about your day, but it's all socially distanced. The Lions completely revamped their facility. They have plexiglass everywhere. I wish I bought stock in plexiglass, maybe. Had I known,
honestly.
right?
Or Zoom.
Yeah, I know, right?
Seriously.
My cousin's big into that and big into the stock market, and I hear about it all the time. But they bought some lockers from a company called Longhorn Lockers for some temporary lockers for their locker. They've added dining facilities. They have a dining app now that people have to order food on because there's not buffets anymore. So everything kind of takeout. There's expanded dining space. They've done everything possible. Honestly, they're what they did protocol wise was incredibly impressive, and they've been very diligent about it as well. So they're doing everything they can. And if you really noticed what's happened for them, I mean, you've seen it around the league, which is good as well. But for the Lions, they had a ton of positive tests in that first 3 days before people were allowed in the building. They had 8 in the first 3 days, and they haven't had one since. And so once guys have gotten in the building, I think once guys have gotten into the routine of things, they haven't had one, which is also a good sign for that they're doing everything right outside of the building, which is at the end of the day going to be the biggest key to all of that. Is how do you stop an outbreak? Is be diligent outside of the building. Of course, listen, if they send kids to school, like Matthew Stafford sending his daughters, all of age 4 to school. So, if something happens there, like that's out of people's control. Right, that's just going to happen, and we're all dealing with that in some form or another. But they've been really diligent, and it seems like I think that they really understand, like, hey, you don't want to mess this up for your teammates here, because I think in the NFL more than any other sport, if it gets into a locker room and it's not caught for 24 hours, because that's what the testing is right now. So say it happens, say on Thursday or Friday, like whatever it is, all of a sudden you went through an entire training camp practice. So probably depending on how they go, a quarter of your team might end up quarantined, might have to sit out for a couple of days for contact tracing. And then who knows how you spread it. So football, more than any other sport, is going to be so dangerous with that in terms of spread if it does get into a building, especially with a player, that I think the players understand how diligent they have to be, and that they just, you can't do a lot of things that you normally would do. I mean, it's going to be very much go to work, go home, maybe go grocery shopping, but maybe even if you have a spouse, maybe that happens, or maybe you do DoorDash or something. I don't know. But I think it's not like, I would be surprised if you saw a bunch of guys out at like elaborate dinners or anything like that, beyond the fact that in Michigan right now, there's not really much that you can do indoors to begin with. So everything would be outdoors, as there's limits on gathering sizes. So that's part of it too. And I think that's going to be the key to this whole season, is being diligent and limiting risk where you can. And that goes for everybody, right? That goes for media, that goes for coaches, that goes for players, that goes for front office staff, everybody involved, because listen, I mean, if I say I came down with COVID, I'm not in a situation where I'm around players because they have us 6 feet away and everything's done virtually interview wise. But still, I mean, you don't want that to happen. I think I probably have a little bit more freedom to maybe do some stuff than like a player would, but I'm also smart enough to say, okay, well, what does my day look like? Well, I'm going to go work out, but that's running outside or running on like the track at Michigan, which is outdoors and very distant and all that. And I have, resistance bands and all that stuff in my apartment. But like, other than that, it's going to the grocery store and like occasionally social distancing, seeing some friends while it's warm out. But once it gets cold, like I've been in, I think 4 houses total since March, including my apartment and my brother's house in North Carolina, where I spent some time during all this. Like, and the time I was in those other people's houses was literally to help them carry stuff in. Like, I mean, you just have to be cautious and be smart, and that goes for everybody. And of course, I don't have it in arm's length of me, I don't think, but like, wear a mask. I carry a mask everywhere. I go on a walk around the neighborhood, I've got a mask in my pocket just in case.
Yep.
Right. So to follow up that question, MJ, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Obviously, we know the some of the medical history with Matthew Stafford's wife. Right. At any point, did he consider actually not playing this year?
He said they had a conversation, but it never was seriously considered. Matthew Stafford wants to play football. His family has always been very supportive of that, Kelly especially. and who's his wife. And he just never. It sounded like the way he talked about it was like, of course you have to have that conversation, especially with moreover than even her health issues, because it was a brain tumor, but it seems like everything's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is they have a newborn at home that's all of, I think, 6 weeks at this point, and 3 other daughters under 4. So there's a lot there. But the fact that, listen, they're sending the daughters to school. Kelly has been about, I don't think there was ever really any sort of consideration to having that happen. That just isn't how Matthew Stafford is wired. Now, if something were to happen, sure, I think he'd have that discussion, because they definitely understand the importance of health at this, after all that they went through last year. But I never really, I think, was something that he seriously considered at any point. And most of the players who have talked on Zoom calls so far have basically reiterated the same thing. Like Marvin Jones talked today for the first time since actually his son died in December. And one of the things I actually asked him was, like, between, the family tragedy you had and everything with COVID, and his family's going to stay in San Diego this year, did you think about opting out at all? And he was like, man, I was home for 8 months. It's time to play football. Like, that seems to be the attitude for a lot of players that have talked so far. Only a couple have really gone in depth about, the opt-out situation. And a lot of that was before the opt-out deadline that they had.
Right.
So, I mean, with the idea that pretty much everybody is there, have the Lions had anyone opt out?
Yeah, they had 3 players opt out. Most of them were backup kind of roster bubble guys.
Okay.
Russell Bodine, who started a bit at center for Cincinnati and Buffalo. John Atkins, who was, I would say he was kind of maybe on the teetering edge of maybe being on the roster this year. Bodine was in a massive competition for a backup offensive line spot. Probably the biggest one would be Geronimo Allison, who might have been the 5th wide receiver. But again, that's a depth wide receiver position, and they were pretty deep there, to the point where they even cut 2 other receivers to get down to, they're at 81 now because one player is still on COVID reserve, Jalen Elliott, the undrafted rookie safety from Notre Dame. So they seem pretty set at what they have at wide receiver, that Geronimo Allison was maybe going to make the team, maybe not.
Yeah.
And if anything, it's actually put Geronimo Allison, I think, in a better position for 2021, because all of their top receivers, other than, well, I mean, Kenny Golladay is technically in a contract year as well, but I'd be shocked if he got to the end of the season in that situation. And obviously there's a franchise tag that could get used. I can't see them letting him walk.
No.
But Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola, Marvin Hall, who are really right now 2, 3, and 4, are all free agents after the year. So Geronimo Allison could come in and actually be in a better situation than he would have been in this year. And I think he would have made the team this year, honestly, as long as he showed good special teams ability.
Yeah. So, I mean, outside of guys opting out, how do you think COVID in general is going to affect the play on the field? So whether that be, I mean, the general lack of fans that we're expecting in the stands, just all of the restrictions, guys not being able to do as much as they normally do during the season, no preseason, things like that. How is that going to affect the actual content, the actual play we see on the field?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's a big unknown that you just don't know yet, because we don't, the NFL hasn't really given teams total regular season protocols yet. So there's still a little bit of question there, right, of what's going to happen, even when it comes to teams. Like, are they still allowed to travel the night before? Do they have to travel the day of if it's a certain distance? Like, when they play at Green Bay in week 2, do they fly in either directly to Green Bay, or do they fly into Appleton that morning and bus up? Because most teams fly into Appleton and stay in Appleton. And they don't know. I don't think they know that answer yet. I think they have an idea. They have maybe a couple of contingency plans, because travel has to be done pretty far in advance there. So it's a question. I think that the early games are going to be rough, just because, I mean, generally when you see the first 4 weeks of an NFL season, it's a little bit hit and miss, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would imagine you're going to see that more so this year, but you're also going to maybe see some teams surprise you out of the gate, because you don't know anything about any team except what people like me write, or talk about. So there isn't that same, you have preseason games say, oh, look, Matthew Stafford does look healthy. Like, you're judging that based on me to make that decision. I think it's going to be much harder for rookies because they don't have that time to get the reps.
Right.
I think it's going to be really hard on, or especially early in the year, on teams with new coaches or new coordinators, which is a place where I think the Lions are actually in decent shape. Because they'll have the same basic continuity. Yeah, they haven't said whether Matt Patricia or Corey Ulin's going to call plays yet, but let's be honest, even if Corey Ulin were to call the plays, Matt Patricia is going to have a very heavy hand in that.
For sure.
And special teams are what they are. I mean, that's probably where they have the biggest change between coordinator and a new punter and a new holder because they have a new punter. But, it's also special teams, so it's a little bit different. Like a team like the Browns, I would be worried. I think they have a lot of talent, but Kevin Stefanski's never been a head coach before. Like I'd be less worried about a team like Washington adjusting, talent level aside, right?
Yeah.
Because Ron Rivera's done it before. He's been there before as a coach. A guy like Matt Rule at Carolina, that's a completely interesting situation because you've got a new coach who's never been an NFL head coach before and a new quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. That and a bunch of other new pieces as well. Like that's going to be really interesting, and I think that those teams early, I think, could really struggle, or it's entirely possible that the element of surprise could really work in their favor because there's on a Kevin Stefanski, like tape-wise, what do you have on him? You have a year or two of the Vikings offense. Well, who knows if he's exactly going to run that?
Yeah,
because we all know Mike Zimmer wanted. More run-heavy stuff. Well, does Kevin Stefanski live in that world? So, I don't know. And that's, to me, where it could get really interesting for some teams. But I think continuity, both with players coming back, with players understanding the scheme, and with coaching staffs is going to be something that's going to help at least probably your first 4 to 6 weeks of the season. And then I think it'll kind of balance itself out as teams get into a rhythm and a routine.
So to go off what you were saying with continuity and also going off with new coaches, we saw that. So we're gonna change lanes here. We saw with we saw with the Chicago Bears when Matt Nagy came to Chicago, the White Knight, like riding in on the horse, coming, helping out a team that's been in absolute disarray, has no idea about offense. Barely any. He brought an offensive scheme in that not many people had game tape on, and obviously Trubisky had decent numbers in that year after John Fox left and having Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator. Obviously more game tape, more everything. Continuity now with a system that he's familiar with. However, there is a quarterback controversy, as you're very well aware. That said, I'm actually curious to know what is the thought coming out of Detroit or even nationally, if you know that, about the Chicago Bears and their quarterback controversy going on.
I mean, I don't know if I would call it a controversy. I think it's just a competition.
Okay.
It's controversy to me is like the Kurt Warner, Eli Manning stuff from way back when, or I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, I don't know if there really has been a great. I mean, even I would say more controversy would be what's going on in Green Bay. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is obviously going to play.
Chicago next year, baby.
No, but what I'm saying, like that was more controversial than like the Bears bringing in Nick Foles. Like the Bears were going to bring in someone. I don't know. I think I would probably go with Trubisky early on. Just because, again, like I was talking about, continuity, understanding the offense. Nick has been a ton of different offenses. He can learn any playbook. That's been clear. But I don't know. I think you, at this point, give Trubisky one more shot. See what he can do. You invested a really high draft pick on him, and I think he just has a really quicker hook than maybe he would have had in prior years when he didn't really have one. When Chase Daniel, now Detroit's backup,
yeah, I know,
was his backup quarterback. Now it's like, what? It's not going well. If it's not going well in a game, or it's not going well the first couple of weeks of the year, guess what? You have Nick Foles, who's been a Super Bowl MVP and also has shown he has no problem coming off the bench mid-game or mid-season and handling that. So that's why, to me, Nick Foles actually made a lot of sense there, because if you want to give Trubisky one more shot, yeah, Nick Foles will put the appropriate pressure on him to do that because he can start and win a job. Right. But you also know, I mean, realistically, when you look at quarterbacks, right, they might have the best backup quarterback situation in the league in Nick Foles.
Because they're both backups.
Yeah, well, I mean, them and no, in all seriousness, who has the best backup situations in the league right now? You know, like them, Dolphins, and New Orleans.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and the Dolphins is still a question mark, because if Tua doesn't start for whatever reason, like, Tua's the backup and we don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Right.
But, I mean, I would take those backup situations over so many others in the NFL right now. And to me, I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think Indianapolis has a good backup situation as well.
True.
But, yeah, that to me, I think that's a benefit for the Bears, just in, hey, you're going to give your guy you invested a really high pick in that really, I mean, if that goes wrong again this year, you got to really, wonder what happens with Ryan Pace if the Bears do not do well, right?
Right.
So, especially who else was in that draft, but yeah, I think you got to give him one more shot. But you have that option where I think before you didn't necessarily have that in Chase Daniel.
In his Zoom, I don't think it was this week. Maybe it was earlier or later last week. Trubisky was saying he was working with the quarterback coach I can't remember who it was that he worked with. But here in Chicago, there is confidence suddenly starting to be written from some of the writers around here with Trubisky and how he's coming out and getting confidence from his own teammates as well. So one can only hope that
listen, man, I'll be straight with you, and I do it too, right? Like, that's the thing about preseason, especially with no games, and
right.
None of us have seen a practice yet. Like, it's all, and it's not like coaches have seen practices or we saw spring.
Right.
Everything is speculation. Everything is unknown right now. Like I've been hearing for months, Matthew Stafford's back is fine. I believe that it is fine. He's, there's been video shown of him practicing and working out that would indicate it is fine. But until I see that with my own eyes, I won't know. So Mitchell Trubisky can have all the confidence in the world, right? But until we actually see practices, you don't really know. And that's why I always say this, everything you read in the preseason, take with the appropriate grains of salt, and my stuff included. I say that with predictions, all of that. It's why when I love when people come at me when they're like, yeah, you got that really wrong. Like, I actually picked the line. I own up to it. I picked the Lions to be 10-6 last year. I bought into the hype, and I was obviously very wrong. But people are like, oh, gotcha. I'm like,
it's a guessing game sometimes.
Yeah, you know what? You also bag on me for picking 8-8 every year, and they've been in that 8-8, 9-7, 7-9 world forever. So
yeah,
sorry, I also couldn't have predicted Matthew Stafford was going to miss half the year. Probably end up in that 7-9 world if he wasn't. But that to me is, be wary with any of that until I would say really a couple weeks in a camp, maybe even end of August. Because you'll have seen it then, and people who watch football all the time know at that point, you get a good idea of who might be able to break out or not. But until then, take everything with a grain of salt.
I think they put pads on today. Today or tomorrow, I think.
I don't think that's accurate yet. I think they have a little bit longer to go.
That was today or tomorrow for the Bears, at least.
Might be. The Lions start. We can watch our first practice Monday.
Maybe not pads. Yeah. Maybe it was. Maybe they're actually.
They could practice more.
Yes, with defenders. So
right. They could do more. I think it was starting today, and then Monday for most teams is when the first media availability practice was. I guess some are doing it on Sunday, and I think some theoretically could have done it. Could have opened the doors to the media today, but I don't think a lot of teams did.
So before MJ asks his question, I'm going to totally put you on the spot, Mike, for two things.
Oh, God. I don't know if I like this, but all right.
One maybe easier than the other. What are your predictions for the North this year?
That's what I was going to ask him.
And secondly, you need to get on Mr. Dickerson about coming on our show and being like, hey, these guys are okay. They're not bad. They're actually pretty decent people.
I'm staying out of the Jeff Dickerson conversation. I love JD. JD is one of my favorite colleagues. He's one of my favorite people to work with.
Awesome. He's awesome.
I think he's amazing. I think he's incredibly good at what he does. When he's on the radio, I love coming on with him as well, but I'm staying out of the pressuring anybody to go on any show. I have my own podcast. It's called the Michael Rothstein Show, and I get it sometimes, right? But I ask people all the time, hey, can you? Yeah,
that's what I was.
So the question number 2 is, maybe JD will see this because I'll obviously, if you tweet it out, I'll tweet it, and then maybe I'll see it, and we'll go from there. But as far as question 1, the NFC North, I think it's a whole bunch of mediocre.
Yeah,
I think every the one caveat. Well, I have 2 caveats on that. The first is Aaron Rodgers going, kind of super angry tour.
He's single
and just and having an MVP type season. I think that, and I don't think there's a non-zero chance in that, just because, let's be honest, he's that good, and they just drafted his potential replacement. So I think he's got maybe something to prove even more. So that's one. But also I look at his receivers, and I'm high on Alan Lazard, but I understand if that's a very small subsect of people. And then the other thing would be if Minnesota's defense can play at the level it has in the past, even with a new secondary, basically without Everson Griffin. So if they can still rotate through that and still have that same level with Barr and Harrison Smith and Daniil Hunter, then I think that they have a chance, especially if they do run the ball with Dalvin Cook and he stays healthy, and if Justin Jefferson approximate 3/4 of what Stephon Diggs did to give Adam Thielen a good number 2, a good kind of balance right there, because I think Justin Jefferson is going to be really good. So those would be the 2 caveats. Otherwise, I think everybody's kind of in the middle. I think Detroit's actually decently positioned. I don't know if I would pick them to win the division, but I think that they've got a decent shot because of continuity, because of Matthew Stafford, and I really like their offense. I think if you look at their offense overall, it wouldn't shock me if, at least passing offense, they probably have the best passing offense overall in the division. They don't have the best quarterback, again, Rodgers, but Stafford's really good.
Yeah.
But you look at their receivers are maybe one of the better cores in the league. I think they have a lot of running backs, a lot of unproven in questions. And then if TJ Hawkinson takes the expected leap from year 1 to year 2 as a tight end, which we've seen other tight ends do that in the past, I think they have a chance to be really good. They have questions on their offensive line. And then the Bears, obviously the biggest questions on offense. I think their defense is really, really good and has a chance, and will keep them in the game. But it's not me punting on the question. I would say if I had to pick a team to win the division right now, it would be Minnesota. I still think they have the most talent, and I think they have the most balance of any team in the division. And I think they have the least side of the ball questions, right? I think Green Bay has fair offensive questions. Detroit's defense is a major question mark, and the Bears' offense is a major question mark. So I would go Minnesota, but I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm gonna, wager any money. Well, I wouldn't wager money on it anyway, but I wouldn't recommend anybody do it because I think it's going to be, especially this season, especially because you don't know if guys all of a sudden get knocked out. You could be 2 games up in the division. COVID strikes your team, and you've lost half your offensive line and your running back with 3 weeks left, and those guys all have COVID. Right. So it's not like a false positive or a contact tracing situation. And so they're out for a week, maybe 2, and then all of a sudden, what do you do? That's why this year it's going to be so unpredictable. And I think you're going to see a lot of teams in that, unless there's a team that's if you're able to stay completely healthy, I think you have a major advantage. But I think if COVID kind of goes as it does potentially, especially as it gets colder in winter, it'll be really interesting. I think you see a lot of teams in that I mean, which they are anyway in the NFL, but in that same window of like, hey, like I don't know what's going to happen from a week-to-week basis. I don't think anyone does at this point. Anyone that tells you they know, it is kind of selling you a bill of goods, because none of us know. If you told me 3 months ago they were going to be at this point in NFL season and have as few positive tests so far in the NFL, I would have been like, no way, like it ain't going to happen. You know, I not a chance. If you had told me, you know, but also if you told me 5 months ago in March, I guess that's 5 months, right? Yeah, that like there would be questions about an NFL season and college football would get canceled in the Big Ten. In the Pac-12, I would be like, no way. Like this, you know, I mean, I travel abroad, again, talking about the map. I travel abroad almost every summer. This is the first summer I haven't left the country in a while. And, you know, I was still looking at flights for June and July and like late March, early April. You're not maybe where I was looking, some of the places I was looking to go, but you just, at that point, you didn't realize what this would turn into. And obviously now you can't really travel anywhere, but, you know.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation. You make a very good point that, I mean, anybody who says they know what they're talking about really don't, because there's so many question marks, not just in terms of the play on the field, but like you said, I mean, a team, if the Packers have Aaron Rodgers test positive, they're screwed for as long as he's gone. So, I mean,
they drafted Jordan Love, MJ.
Okay, yeah, but like, I love Jordan Love. I think he's a very good pick long term. Maybe not necessarily what we should have done. But you know, without a preseason and without training camp, I mean, Zoom's great, but it's hard to teach a guy how to play in the NFL virtually. So
rookies are in trouble.
Yeah. So yeah,
you know, it'll be, and that's a question with the Lions, right? Because Jeff Okudah, who I think is a very rare talent, and I think can handle it. I think that first month is going to be much rougher for him potentially than it would have been otherwise. And I think he's going to have I think he has a good chance of having a good rookie year based off of people I've spoken to who have coached him in the past.
Yeah.
So, but it's still going to take time. I mean, and that first month of the season, I would imagine they don't travel him, right? And they do have Desmond Trufant, but I mean, that first month of the season, look at the receivers he could end up facing. He could end up facing Allen Robinson, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, and Michael Thomas.
That's terrifying.
Right. I mean, and obviously, of those, the Bears and the Packers situations are the best for him potentially, because if he's not facing the number one, the number twos are not nearly as good in either case. But New Orleans, Arizona,
that's a scary team.
Oh, I think Arizona is going to be good. I think Arizona's offense is going to be the fun offense to watch this season. That's a bold prediction from me there. I think their offense has the potential to be so dynamic and so to watch, and it'll be really interesting to see what Cliff Kingsbury is able to come up with, because I don't think he was able to really unleash the full potential of it last year.
Yeah.
And I think they have a better running back with Kenyon Drake that fits into it, even though we saw him for about half the year last year in that. And obviously having a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, along with, again, they still have Christian Kirk, they still have Larry Fitzgerald, they still have, you know, they have. They didn't really use them, but Andy Isabella is super fast, and like that's going to be really interesting to watch offensively for them. I don't know about their defense so much, but you know, if they can pull it together, that NFC
team, who cares?
That NFC West, that division. Think of that. That
it's
division
terrifying.
Is, like people. I've had people say, "Oh, the NFC North is the toughest division in football." Nah, man. Like look at the NFC West. Like the NFC West legitimately has 4 teams. I think you could put them in any other division in the NFL, and they would probably be a top 2 team in that division.
Yeah,
and that's scary. Arizona being the big wild card there, right? Like we don't know, but yeah, I mean, like you put them in the NFC South. Sure, I mean maybe New Orleans. You put them in the AFC East right now this year.
Yeah.
Woo! Like I mean, I think Buffalo could be really good, but
Buffalo, I agree. So, interesting side note, real quick, Mike. I actually had the opportunity to coach Jimmy Garoppolo when he was in high school.
Oh wow!
So it was it's pretty cool to see him be as successful as he is in the NFL.
Yeah, he has been very, very good, and I'm really curious to see what he builds on, how he builds on this past year, because I think I think he found some stuff last year that maybe he didn't have those first couple years in
I agree.
And it'll be really interesting if he builds on that, or if he doesn't. And then if he doesn't, you kind of say, well, okay, is this maybe the level for him?
Right.
So that's gonna be a really interesting thing to watch in San Francisco. But that San Francisco team, man, whew, that's a good.
Now they've got Kittle locked up.
Yeah. Well, look what the Chiefs did, right? Like the Chiefs, they've got their three main pieces, or three of their main pieces, locked up for a long time.
You know what I find
like the prime of their careers at this point.
Right. And you know what I find interesting though, is the dynamic of how positional importance changes every 2 to 5 years in the NFL. So currently right now we're in the phase of the running back is not as important. It doesn't get the aside from like Barkley or aside from like Elliott or whatever. But like, you know, they don't get that big money contracts where we just saw today. Kelsey just got that big contract. And then Kittle just got that big contract. And the tight end position now is a very important portion of an NFL offense. And it's not that I wasn't before, but I just think it's interesting, though, how NFL money is spent, just that dynamic on a rotational basis from year.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, when you're looking at running backs, right? Todd Gurley is a great example of the concern there.
Yeah.
Because Todd Gurley was in that conversation, and now, Devontae Freeman's another really good example of a guy that could have been in that conversation. One injury and you're in real trouble, right? When you're a running back potentially. Le'Veon Bell as well. I mean, I think we'll see how Le'Veon does in New York.
He also sat out a year though.
And that's fair. But again, he wouldn't have sat out if they got big money, and I think but you look at that and say, sure, other than a Saquon, a Zeke, Derrick Henry,
CMC.
like that's the other thing. I think that you're slowly starting to see maybe a shift. Yeah, it's a passing offense, it's a passing league, but the bigger backs, the power backs, I think are starting to slowly make a comeback, because Saquon's a massive human being. His quads are huge. Like, we've seen it, right? Derrick Henry is just a truck, basically.
Yeah.
It would be like, to me, he's a transformer. Like, he's like Optimus Prime turned human. And like, you see that, and and I say that having covered a guy who was nicknamed after a transformer for a few years in Calvin Johnson. But Derrick Henry's built like that, and you look at Zeke, and Zeke's built very well.
Yeah.
For a running back. So I think and before that, Marshawn Lynch was a very powerful runner as well, and he was in that same vein of how he was used in Seattle, although a little smaller than those other guys. So that, to me, will be interesting to see if those backs start to make a comeback in some form or fashion versus kind of the Christian McCaffrey-esque backs. But Christian McCaffrey is really just, you could call him an offensive weapon, which was a name, you go back to Denard Robinson, who obviously didn't really pan out as that in the league, but that was, Jacksonville coined that for him.
Yeah.
It was OW. Like, they didn't know what to do with him because he was a college quarterback who couldn't really catch all that well, honestly. And I covered him at Michigan. It wasn't there, but you tried, right? And you knew he could do a bunch of different stuff. It would be much more interesting, actually, if Denard Robinson came out now, by the way.
Like, true.
He didn't have the college accuracy to be an NFL quarterback. He didn't have the height. He was
an athlete.
He was not 5'11", because I'm 5'11", and Denard is shorter than me. Really nice guy, by the way, like incredibly nice guy. It's awesome to see he's getting into coaching. But yeah, you just see those, like, the bigger backs, I think are going to be maybe what teams look to a little bit, because the NFL, like, once they see one team be successful with something, they
copycat league.
Yeah, every team tries it. And, you look at what Tennessee did, and you look at what the Dallas has done and how Dallas has built their team. Granted, those teams haven't won. Dallas, at least, hasn't won big yet. Tennessee surprised a lot of people last year. we'll see what happens. But I would agree in that. I mean, I think right now, quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends, offensively are the ones that are getting the money of skill positions.
Right.
And then obviously defense, edge rushers, pass rushers, corners,
Right.
and a little bit of your elite interior guys like a Chris Jones are the ones that are really getting the money. Like safeties and running backs, man, it's a much different world for them, and you see it year in year out in free agency too. Like the markets that sometimes open up last are safety on defense and running back on offense. And,
Yeah.
It's harder for running backs too, because that pounding they take it shortens careers. And I know guys have gotten past that age 30 barrier, but I still think that that's a good rule of thumb with running backs. I mean,
Frank Gore, baby.
I was gonna say most people are not Frank Gore.
He keeps going.
Well, but that, talking about a big, a guy that like fits that mold, right?
He's a bowling ball. He's
a like that. But how many guys? I mean, you got what, Frank Gore and Adrian Peterson. I mean, now listen, Peterson's got, I think, a much bigger role now all of a sudden in Washington.
Yeah.
Because of other factors, but you like, other than that, find me a guy who's a running back like that you feel good about potentially at that age. I don't know, and maybe some of these guys end up being that because they're all in their primes of their careers now, and technology and the way they do health is so much better now, and guys take such good care of their bodies, and maybe we'll see. But running back's still a position to me that I would be wary after a certain age and really a certain number of like years with a ton of hits and a ton of carries, right? Because the body can only take so much punishment.
Yeah. Very good point. Well, Michael, I think that's all of the time we have today. Thank you so much for being able to work with me. I know we've been trying to get you on for a while.
That's not
no,
me.
That's okay.
My fault.
That is okay.
I'm sorry it took a while. I'm glad I was able to make it happen. This was fun. This was a fun time.
Absolutely. This has been fantastic. Bruce, any last words?
No, thank you so much, and go Bears.
Just I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I don't root for any team. I root for I will admit I have actually taken on sports fandom for the first time in a while this year. I am rooting hard for the Calgary Flames. So I'm gonna plug one thing here.
Yes, do it.
Well, besides like read me on ESPN.com. Come check out my podcast, The Michael Rothstein Show. But Chris Snow, he's an assistant GM with the Calgary Flames. He is a friend of mine for 20 plus years. We went to college together. He actually was a newspaper writer, and then he went to go cover the Boston Red Sox, left sports writing, went to become an analytics person in the NHL, and is now an assistant GM in Calgary. He was diagnosed with ALS about a year ago, and so for me right now, I want to see him see his team win the Stanley Cup, because that dude works so hard. And you can if you have any interest at all, his charity and their foundation that they're running through the Calgary Flames Foundation is called snowystrong.ca. That's SNOYSTRONG.ca, Canadian. And he's follow him on Twitter at Chris Snow CGY, and his wife's on Twitter as well at Kelsey Wrights, and she tweets a lot about what they've been going through kind of week by week, month by month. And so for me personally, that's a complete personal thing. Like, Chris ever left the Flames and went to the Kings, I would do the same thing. You root for your friends to St. Louis. But nothing would make me happier this fall than to see that happen for him. So, that would be my one plug, is if you feel so willing to do so, I guess, snowystrong.ca, and any money that you could donate to help end ALS would be awesome.
For sure.
Absolutely. And I'm not even a hockey fan, but I'm a Calgary guy now. I got you. I got you. Perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, I probably shouldn't admit that. I might get in trouble, but I don't care.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm fully on that boat. I don't cover hockey, and I've written one hockey story in my life, so I think I'm all right there.
Well said.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Michael. I'll be sure to tweet this out, tag you in it, so we can go from there. And once again, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Hey, no problem. Anytime, guys.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, man. God bless.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
We had a good show today, Bruce.
I agree. I think we did some good stuff today, MJ. We did some good stuff. We promoted a foundation to help with ALS. We talked about the New York Yankees.
love Eric. Yankees still a tough sell on me, but anytime we can get Eric's passionate rants on the show, I'm down for that.
Exactly, and the fact that we just had Barstool and ESPN represented, I'll totally take that, FJ.
Absolutely, Bruce. I mean, Coach Bruce, we are moving up in the world.
Apparently, hey, Chris Black got his own show. Maybe we'll see the same thing happen with Mike and with Eric now.
Mike already has his own show.
Oh, that's true.
And I'm pretty sure Eric already has his own show too.
We'll see. Well, is it daily?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, he has his own Barstool sponsored podcast that is daily. I don't think Mike's is daily, but he still has his own podcast.
So we could do this daily. We have our own. Then we would have our own show daily.
Bruce, I do not have time to do this daily.
Neither do I. I got work.
And that's a lot of people that I'd have to get on the show. So unless you start pulling some weight outside of Chris Black,
I'm trying. Believe me, they see me and they're like, "Who is this knucklehead?" And then they see you, they're like, it's a student that's trying to get in the biz."
Yeah. I keep telling you, it's because of my profile picture. That's the only reason.
That's true. Like I said, I'm going to switch. I mean, my Twitter profile picture is Celine and I at ABC7, but
yeah,
it has been working. You know what, though? I've been reaching out via Instagram. Maybe I'll change my Instagram.
Do Twitter. I would reach out via Twitter. That's my recommendation. I've gotten way more off of Twitter than Instagram.
All right, there you go.
Instagram is a little too personal, Bruce.
You're giving away the secrets.
Okay,
real quick. I'm sorry, MJ. So serious topic.
Yes.
More serious topic. All right, so guys, if you see the shirt that I'm wearing, it says Sylvie Strong. I'm a big time supporter of the Waddle and Sylvie show on ESPN 1000. And no, I did not get pumped for this. I don't get anything for it. However, I've been listening to them for over 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And that being said, he got diagnosed with thyroid cancer. It was actually the cancer that my mom passed away with. And as soon as I heard that he ended up getting diagnosed with, I definitely got emotional. That said, if you get a chance, these shirts are actually original shirts, original T-shirts or something like that.com. I'm sure you can Google Sylvie Strong and it'll pop up. All proceeds for these go to the V Foundation with ESPN, another pub for another place that I don't work for, but I'm okay with it. Guess what? I have no restrictions, so it's nice what we're doing.
There you go.
So if you get an opportunity to do so, please donate to it. Like I said, all the proceeds for the shirts that you buy of these go straight to the V Foundation for Cancer Research. Regardless of what your opinion is with it, it does all the money go there, whatever, blah, blah, this, that, and the other. Don't give a shit. Donate, do what you can, feel better about yourself. And plus, these shirts are freaking sweet and they're nice and comfy.
It's a nice shirt. It's a nice shirt.
Oh, also, pew, 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 coming at you with all this stuff.
Yes.
Ashley and I also have some swag that's going to be coming soon.
We do.
We are in the process of getting some nice little sponsor stuff, a little T-shirt action with our logo on it, all that stuff. So you guys will totally appreciate it. And some way.
Of course you froze when you were talking about the T-shirts.
Oh, no! Okay, all right. So let's rewind it. I'll go through it again. So we're looking at T-shirts. I'm totally doing it again. I was fine, but I'm popping it again.
Go for it.
So this is what happens when you do it on the internet.
Okay.
So anyway, we have some T-shirts that are going to promote what we're doing. Third Down Thursdays. It'll be our logo in the front, and on the back it'll be hashtag Third Down Thursday. So we're actually getting some pretty decent amount of people that are very interested in this. So keep it up. Thank you guys so much for reaching out to me and saying how such a great job or crap job we've been doing.
Depends on my day.
I'm cool with it. Because the train doesn't stop, baby. The train doesn't stop.
Yes, sir. Well, Bruce, I think that's all we've got for today. I'm tired. I still have work to do.
Hours.
I know we pounded through that. That was fantastic. This is like a legitimate thing now.
Apparently.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll have to see if we can get another big show next week. I'll start working on that tonight. So we will be in touch, everybody. Yeah. Bruce making T-shirts pulls a little bit of his weight, but
I had Chris Black, and then he left us for his own show. So
that dirty guy. No, we love Chris. We love Chris. But yes, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Bruce, as always. Shout out to Eric and Mike for coming on the show, and we'll see you guys next week with more tomfoolery.